Shall the floor amendment be agreed to? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Oh, yes, we have to reject the committee substitute first.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would ask the body to reject the committee substitute.
Shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? The committee substitute is rejected. Shall the floor amendment be agreed to? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? The floor amendment is agreed to. Delegate Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House, I want to speak briefly about this bill. It's been before the body on a couple different occasions, and of course explain what changes there are in the substitute. This is Senator McClellan's version of HB 1526, the Virginia Clean Economy Act. And as I've told the body, it's the result of literally hundreds of hours of discussion with stakeholders. It is backed by an unprecedented number of environmental groups and clean energy companies who are eager for Virginia to unlock its doors to the clean energy industry. In committee and on this floor, Madam Speaker, I have used words to describe this bill like transformative and historic, and I believe those words are accurate for this bill. The Clean Economy Act will vault Virginia to the top of the heap or near the top of the heap and be a leader in moving to a clean economy. In the process, it's also going to spur investment in our solar energy, grow an efficiency industry that already employs thousands of Virginians, and position our Commonwealth to be a hub not only for the development of offshore wind, but for the manufacturing industry associated with that. Other states, of course, Madam Speaker, are vying to become that hub, and Virginia needs to act now. In short, the VCEA will accelerate Virginia's transition to a clean energy economy, creating new thousands of jobs while combating climate change. The legislation is based on 5 pillars, if you will, Madam Speaker. First and foremost, setting clean energy targets of at least 30% renewable energy by 2030 and 100% carbon-free energy by 2045. And by way of explanation, one of the differences in the new bill is that actually used to be 2050. Energy efficiency, which I regard as the real cornerstone of the legislation, includes an energy savings target of 5% by 2025. That, in prior versions of the bill that this body has seen, was 2.5%. I want the body to remember, Madam Speaker, that when we use less energy as a Commonwealth, we need to build less generation facilities. Solar and onshore wind. The bill deems 16,100 megawatts of solar and onshore wind in the public interest, which is enough to power roughly 3 million homes. And it increases the net metering cap to 6% and the PPA cap to 1,000 megawatts, and that was previously 500. It also increases competition in these fields, in these areas in Virginia. 35% of these generating facilities need to come from non-Dominion sources. Bill has a provision relating to offshore wind, and it deems 5,200 megawatts of offshore wind in the public interest, enough to power roughly 1.3 million homes. And importantly, it also has a section relating to energy storage, deeming 2,700 megawatts of energy storage in the public interest. And that also requires that non-Dominion players be involved in that field. In terms of changes that the substitute makes, Madam Speaker, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, commonly known as RGGI, since that bill has separately passed, most of that was taken out of this substitute since it's now a standalone bill. But this bill, since RGGI sets targets from 2020 to 2030, this bill, of course, sets targets for getting to zero carbon beyond 2030. The bill, Madam Speaker, the new substitute is also full of new provisions having to do with strengthening the State Corporation Commission's oversight of this process. These include that the SCC may reject renewable energy costs it deems unreasonable or imprudent. The SCC has greater oversight regarding the development of offshore wind through cost containment and competitive procurement language. The SCC has additional authority to require the utilities to procure wind, solar, and energy storage resources from third-party developers. Importantly, Madam Speaker, the new bill has language which requires the SCC to consider scientifically grounded and peer-reviewed analysis having to do with the social costs of carbon. With respect to labor and this bill's effect on the people of Virginia, the new bill, the new substitute, has new language which requires the utilities to develop and submit to the SEC a plan to utilize local workers maximize economic development benefits, and encourage workforce development here in Virginia. The new bill has a section related to accelerated buyers, which relates to providing a pathway for companies with their own renewable energy goals to procure offshore wind directly, helping to reduce the cost of the investment for all other ratepayers, and contribute to reducing Virginia's carbon footprint by directly investing in renewables, which will offset the investment the utilities will need to make and reduce the cost for all other ratepayers. And finally, in terms of changes, Madam Speaker, and very importantly, there is what's called a PIP provision program, a percentage of income payment, which establishes a process both through an SEC proceeding and a stakeholder working group convened by DHCD and DSS to stand up a low-income ratepayer protection program as a part of this bill so that lower-income Virginians are not adversely affected by this program. So, Madam Speaker, thanks to the work of a lot of legislators, both in this chamber and a number of allies, this bill returns to this chamber stronger than ever, better than ever. We have strengthened amendments which enacted last time and added to them, including a lot of provisions protecting Virginia ratepayers. I want to close, Madam Speaker, by saying that we know what we need to do. We know where the future is headed. The Clean Economy Act is just the sort of bold action Virginia needs to take, and it needs to take it now. It is, I would suggest, Madam Speaker, the most important opportunity this body has ever had to take control of our clean energy future and make Virginia a leader in the new clean economy. It's for that reason I urge my colleagues to vote for this legislation. As everyone knows, there's an unprecedented number of organizations who support the bill, including the Sierra Club, LCV, CCAN, Virginia Energy Efficiency Coalition, and the broader, very wide-ranging solar community who are eager to finally get into Virginia. I want to clarify one last point. The Virginia Interfaith Power and Light is neutral. They don't oppose this bill. NRDC is neutral and do not oppose this bill. So, Madam Speaker, I would urge the body to pass SB851.
I believe, actually, Madam Clerk, will you please report the amendments to the floor substitute?
Floor amendments to SB 851, offered by Delegate Rasool. First Amendment, line 1200 of the floor substitute, after does not exceed, strike 1.4 times the comparable cost on an unweighted average basis of a conventional simple cycle combustion turbine. Insert 2.0 times the comparable cost on an unweighted average basis of a utility scale solar. Amendment 2, line 1214, floor sub, after any such, strike costs proposed for recovery through a rate adjustment clause pursuant to subsection A6 of 56-585.1. Insert approved costs shall be recovered through the utilities rates for generation and distribution, and
The delegate from Roanoke City, Delegate Rasool.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking to the amendments.
Delegate Rasool, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I know this has been a long road on a pretty big bill, one of the most significant bills that we have faced here. I know it contains a lot of the blood, sweat, and tears of so many folks who have come together to try to develop a plan in moving forward, and I certainly appreciate that. You've heard me several times talk about wanting to do this, but being as mindful as we can of the impact to ratepayers. So before you, I have two amendments. The most costly portion of the bill, as we have seen, are the wind portions of the bill. And so the two amendments that are before you, one of them changes the comparable. So right now, if you read the bill, Madam Speaker, it says that unfortunately the SEC shall deem these certain costs to be reasonable and prudent if it's at 1.4 times a certain level. What does that mean for us? That means if the cost is $125 a megawatt hour or less, the SEC shall automatically rubber stamp this pretty much. What we want to do is change this to 2 times the cost it would be to build solar. So I had originally said, okay, we'll do 1.4 solar. Then I talked to a few industry executives and we tried to find a better number. And 2 times instead of $125, Madam Speaker, would be about $90 per megawatt. So what we're saying is that the SCC must essentially approve anything that's below $90 per megawatt to construct. Anything above that, they would have to go through a process to approve. If you're looking for precedent, Madam Speaker, right now, for example, Massachusetts Vineyard Wind Project signed a PPA for $75, and in their second phase is $65. So I think that $90 is a reasonable amount to say, hey, if it's below 90, then it's okay, you can move forward. But 125, to me, Madam Speaker, is probably not very reasonable at all with regards to the ratepayers. The second amendment is an important one because the way the bills work right now is you have your base rates and then you have racks, which are additions that we have to our energy bills. Many of you have opened up your bills before and you see you have a charge and then other charges. So what we're saying is that the wind project, Madam Speaker, needs to be recouped under the base rates as opposed to an automatic addition as a rack. And that way we can ensure that, in fact, the adequate rate of return is being recaptured. This is a better process for ratepayers to ensure that they're not being overcharged with all of the projects that are going on. So, Madam Speaker, I'd hope it would be the pleasure of the body to adopt these two amendments.
The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, would the delegate from Roanoke respond to a question?
Will the delegate yield?
I yield.
The delegate yields.
Thank
Delegate
you, Madam
Mullen.
Speaker. Since the delegate from Roanoke has been so focused on costs over the last few days and is also the author of the Green New Deal, I would just ask him whether or not the Green New Deal actually contains any cost requirements for offshore wind, because I would note that the Clean Economy Act cuts the 100 basis points, 1% or 10% extra profit for offshore wind. And my reading of the Green New Deal is that there are no cost containments in that. Isn't that correct?
Delegate Rasool.
Madam Speaker, I would say to the gentleman that is incorrect. If you read through the Green New Deal, you'll see that there's a call for a comprehensive climate action plan. We would put together in detail, making sure that we take into account what's going to happen in communities like in Southwest, what's going to happen with farmers, what's going to happen with our land use provisions, making sure that we not only approach the climate crisis with the fierce urgency of now, but do it in the appropriate way. That is what I think is the responsible thing, not to figure out what we can jam down people's throats in a short session.
Madam Speaker.
The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Madam Speaker, I would rise for a motion.
Delegate Mullen, you have the floor.
Madam Speaker, I would move to pass by these two amendments.
Madam Speaker,
Delegate Rasool.
speaking to the motion.
Delegate Rasool, you have the floor.
Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, I know that there is a lot that we are considering through this very tough session, and it's really difficult because there are so many people in these conversations, and sometimes we're not sure what to believe, who to believe. What we're trying to do, Madam Speaker, is do our best to be responsible in how we approach it. As the gentleman had stated, I am a big advocate for being aggressive in this. So we've got to be mindful about how we go about doing it. And so all these amendments are saying is, hey, the way we recoup it, let's make sure that it's not automatically a super high price. And I think this is pretty reasonable. And as we have seen from what other projects are being signed on, I think that there's plenty of latitude. And Madam Speaker, the cost is only going down. So let's make sure that we are very mindful. I hope with regards to the motion to pass by these amendments, we will vote no to the motion, so that way we can vote for these floor amendments.
The delegate from Newport News, Delegate Mullen.
Madam Speaker, I would yield to the delegate from Arlington.
The delegate.
I'm sorry.
The delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would also ask that the body pass these amendments by. There's been a lot of talk about how much this is going to cost. There's nothing in this bill that says please spend as much as you possibly can. What it does is it very carefully crafts a process by which the SCC will keep tabs on what is being spent. Somehow wind has become the boogeyman in this bill. And I'm not going to ask for a show of hands from the other side, but I think, frankly, we all agree that we need to be moving towards a clean economy. I think we all agree that sometime very soon we need to be at 100%. We can't get to 100% without wind. Wind is crucial to the future of Virginia's, not only its climate, but to its economy. What's going to be done down in Newport News is going to think about it from an economic development perspective as well. It's going to bring thousands and thousands of new jobs to the Newport News area. This language has been very carefully crafted. The delegate from Roanoke says he spoke to some experts. I've spoken, my team has spoken to an awful lot of experts over the course of the last several weeks. And frankly,
Delegate, the time's up. If you could just wrap up.
This will kill the ability to build offshore wind off of Virginia Beach.
Okay. All those in favor
Parliamentary inquiry, Madam Speaker.
Delegate Rasool.
Madam Speaker, would it be correct that if the motion is to pass by the amendments, so if you'd like to see the amendments go forward, you would vote no to this motion?
That is correct.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
All those in favor of Delegate Rasool's motion Delegate Mullins' motion to pass by Delegate Rasool's amendments shall say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. The motion to pass by carries. We will vote on the electronic voting board. All those in favor of Delegate Mullins' motion to pass by Delegate Rasool's amendments, vote now on the electronic voting board. The clerk shall close the roll.
Ayes 38, nays 58, abstentions 0.
Ayes 38.